I have the pleasure to meet with DeShorn King of Logis X, correct?
Yes, sir.
How you doing today?
I'm doing A-okay, brother. Can't complain, man.
Got a smile on his face despite being out without power for several days last week.
Ah, man, tell me about it. Even more, even more reasons to smile. Hey, we're back. We're live. The world's right side up now. So yes,
That is a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing, isn't it?
tell me about it, man. We learned so much about losing power, self-service, and internet shows that we're just not prepared to be in the wilderness, dude. We're not.
We lost that skill set a long time ago, right?
Tell me about it. We had to go back to the old days, man. The old days.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Makes you be thankful for what we have. The modern conveniences are pretty darn good.
Definitely, definitely.
Awesome. Well, hey, first of all, tell me, how did you start your company? What was the inspiration? And how's it going?
Oh man. So it has been a journey, let's just say that. How we got here has just been, I'll say, a really cool, scary roller coaster ride. The inspiration. I would have to give it up to my now fiance slash co-founder. Um,
Congratulations, by the
thank you
way.
very much. The inspiration came from, I got to back up a little bit. So, high school sweethearts, been together pretty much our whole time in high school, everything. She was, prom queen, runner up, dancer, wannabe Victoria's Secret model, the whole 9 yards. And then to one day, years after, I'm on Wall Street, working on Wall Street, and I get this call from her. I haven't heard from her in quite a while. And she calls me and she tells me, "Hey, I'm on the George Washington Bridge." I'm like, pause. What are you doing on the George Washington Bridge? Like, red flag, right? Like, hey, I never heard from you. The first call I got is you on the George Washington Bridge. Kind of scared me for a second. But she's like, "Oh no, I'm on my way to Connecticut." I'm like, "Okay, wait, what are you doing in New York? Why are you going to Connecticut?" And then she, reveals to me that she drives semi trucks, 18 wheelers. And I'm like, "Whoa, how you went from prom queen runner up, the girliest girl I ever met, to now shifting gears, wheels turning, diesel burning, on the way to Connecticut to deliver a load." And I'm like, "Wait, what? How did this happen?" And then fast forward later, I was just tired I was just fed up of being fed up working on Wall Street. I just wanted a change of environment. And then she was like, "Hey, it's always trucking." And in the back of my mind, I always wanted to have something to do with logistics, right? Because, food, medical, transportation, three pillars of the entire economy. I was like, I'll do it. And I was like, if she can do it, I can do it. And I ventured off, left Wall Street, went down to Florida, hired my father, got a truck, and just got into trucking. Just randomly just did it. And by the way, no experience, nothing. Made a huge investment, bought a truck, bought a trailer. The first day of buying the truck, literally drove it a mile to pick up the trailer. The truck got stuck under the trailer for like 3 days, so that's to tell
No.
you. So the inspiration comes from just, literally getting everything from the mud, literally, you know. And to get here has been just, hands-on experience, learning and just doing.
Wow. Okay, so how did your now fiance fit into this? You're like, she's in trucking. I got to get in trucking. Like, how did that go?
She was in trucking, and she was telling me how great it is to be, a trucker. I didn't really want to be a truck driver per se, but I did wanted to, partake in the industry, and I still saw like an upside for it. And after purchasing the truck and everything, mind you, what's more, no idea how this trucking thing works. And I bought a new truck. My dad hasn't drove a truck in years. And the trucks he's used to is the old school trucks, not the newer stuff. So I'm calling her how to regen the truck. And, and she just been instrumental to my development of being in the industry. And then to me, eventually asking her, like, "Hey, can you come drive for me?" I'm losing hair here. Um, you're the experienced one, so can you come over? Of course, she denied me because she had something great going on at the time.
Okay.
But I had to learn with her guidance, of course. And we were able to scale that company up to about 15 trucks,
Wow.
just doing just doing it, and that was my first encounter with freight brokers as well, and the role that freight brokers play within the industry. So even when I did get into the industry, not knowing what I was doing and not having the slightest idea how to operate a trucking company, I had to rely on the freight brokers to find me jobs. But the time between starting and actually getting jobs was 100% predicated on the broker willing to work with me. So
Hmm.
after that big investment, I couldn't work because the broker had this unspoken rule that if you're new, you're high risk, and we're not going to work with you until we see X amount of time on your authority, you
Huh.
know?
Interesting.
Yeah. So that is, some of the inspiration and some of the ingredients that, led us to, create what we created, which is logistics, the logistics exchange.
Yeah. So how did you get from owning trucks to, and I realize you had involvement or experience with freight brokers, but how do you get from owning trucks to this?
Okay, so fast forwarding that story, she finally agreed. She came on board, and we continue to scale the company to the point that we end up doing a reverse merger, and we kind of exit the company. And
Wow.
we did reverse merger with a pubco, sold it off, and then we was like, hey, we want to do it again, but this time we want to make a change, right? We want to do it differently, and we don't want to pretty much rely on a third party who has who's not incentivized to make sure we're in the best position at all times. And I was like, hey, we should restart, do a whole new company, um, operate it differently. And then we was like, what is the biggest problem we faced doing that entire ordeal? And the biggest problem was securing dedicated contracts,
Hmm.
for trucking companies, because majority of 90% of the entire trucking industry is operated by small companies, right? So mom and pops, right? So
Okay.
this is six or less trucks. So you're talking about owner operators, one guy who owns, three, four trucks, and 90% of the entire trucking industry is made up of these independent carriers, right? And we decided that if we're going to do it right, we're going to do it in a way that it's advantageous to the smaller guys,
Huh?
So one aspect of the industry is where um, other truck owners are able to lease their truck to a company in order for them to get access to freight. You know what I'm saying? Because realistically, it's all about getting consistent work in the trucking industry, right? Finding jobs, and that's like the biggest task. And part of that is dealing with brokers because they're the one who's feeding you the loads. So we decided that if we're going to do this again, we're going to do it differently, but we're going to do it in a way that is advantageous for the little guy. And one way of doing that is using all the lessons we're learned and all the opportunities we were able to create by going directly to the shipper. So I was like, hey, we're onto something here because I know how to get the contracts, but the guy who has one truck and all he knows is to drive and he doesn't want to deal with contracts and RFPs and all these different things, like maybe we can offer that service for him. And the project just started to develop from there. It was like, hey, okay, we know how to get direct contracts. You don't have to go work with a broker, but how do we make it accessible? And this is when we turn to tech and then really start, getting into how does this thing look? That this is the biggest problem we have, right? And how do we solve it? And this is why we went to the tech route and building, an application, a software per se, and building out this marketplace. Now it went from us trying to redesign, redo a new trucking company to this whole new thing of its own that has legs where we did pretty much a beta test, a beta launch, and we just start asking carriers like, "Hey, if we do this, would you be interested?" And it was like, "Yeah, definitely would be interested. Like, we're tired of brokers and so on and so forth." And that kind of gave us the juice, the fuel to kind of push forward. And yeah, we landed the idea by literally taking the problems from a practical point of view to this kind of experimental, big, grandiose idea down to this tangibility and how it's done and how do we actually execute the mission. And this is how we came up with the digital logistics exchange.
That's amazing. So you saw an opportunity or a hole or problem to be solved in the market,
Oh,
right?
oh yeah, definitely. And the amount of money brokers was making at the time, compared to what carriers were facing, it was just, it's something that it went from a want to do to we had to do it. Because during COVID, you had the big guys like C.H. Robinson, you know, they went from, a company that's generally bringing in about 17, not actually 17, that's after the fact, about 13 billion a year to 17 billion in 2022, and this is like right after the cusp of COVID, to the point that they overhired. You know what I'm saying? During COVID. And then during COVID, we saw like 45,000 trucking companies went out of business. And shippers are complaining that the rates are too high, and truckers are complaining the rates are too low. And here are the middlemen. Companies like Steam Logistics went from $30 million, to $300 million. I mean, $700 million in a matter of a couple of years.
Wow.
And those years was during COVID, So it went from, okay, what role does a broker play? What role does a trucker play? Who are the key stakeholders? And doing that whole course, realized that the shipping companies, who are the ones who wants the load move, and the carriers, the people who are actually moving the loads, they don't communicate. They don't talk. So there's the middleman that's dictating rates, dictating market, dictating, company survival, and the success of companies. And it's so fragmented. So we figured that we'd be the bridge to defrag that by creating this all-in-one platform that pretty much replaces and take over all the tasks and duties that a traditional broker does, but electronically and digitally, for less of the cost. Because these are human beings sitting in seats doing mundane tasks, like calling to figure out where the trucker's at. Like, in this day and age, we don't need someone calling and say, "Hey, where are you at?" Like, we got tracking and all these different things that we can utilize to not only bring transparency to the market, but just to make it practical.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I said, it's a bunch of ingredients of just problems, solutions, and just tangibility.
I love that you tested it first too.
Oh yeah,
Is that like, if that advice, like if there's advice, somebody has a great idea, they think, first thing you want to do is test it with your potential customers, correct?
100%. And we're still doing that today. We're MVP, we're in the market right now, and it's all about user feedback for us. To the point, it kind of got scary for a little bit, right? Because we were just focusing on building and testing and building and testing and building and testing, until one of our advisors was like, "Dude, that's great. You're doing great. But at some point, you gotta come out the nest. You gotta bring it out to the market, because those feedback is small. It's confined to small group of individuals. And when you get to the market and you understanding, early adopters and getting those feedback, that's what really mattered. So for a while we was just in testing mode, just testing. And one of our advisors was like, "No, dude, you gotta get it out there, And then we got it out there, and then we saw a change in the feedback, versus wants to needs. You know what I'm saying? And firsthand encounters.
So that's a good takeaway, because you think about how you can test and iterate, and you can eventually test yourself to death, right? With no practical application The other thing I hear from you that I've heard before, it's like everybody has wants from software or systems.
Mhm.
Wants versus needs. What do you need? And then the list of wants you can have. That'd be nice. But what do we need to implement this system and make it usable, right?
Exactly, exactly. One of my project managers came up with this concept saying need to have and nice to have. You
Nice.
know,
Yeah.
that's how you
Perfect.
broke it down to me. That's nice to have, but you don't really need it. You
Yeah.
know, so yes, that was something. You know, like I said, it's all about learning as we go, and another term he dubbed is build a plane as you fly, because as a founder, and I'm sure the founders could agree, like we want what we want. It's like this vision that we have of the product being this. And then we can go out and then in the reality of things, we're building a product that's only suited for us individually as a founder. What the founder vision. This is what I'm pitching investors. This is my grandiose idea, and I need it to be like this. You know what I'm saying? But that need is more so a want, because when you put it in the customer hands, the thing that you spent a lot of time going back and forth developing, they just slide right over it and go to what they actually want, you know, and what they actually need in order for them to, you know, continue their operations, whatever the case may be. And that was like the biggest lesson I had to learn, was that the customer matters, and the customer is the one who dictates, and the market is going to dictate what needs to be built or created per se, you know?
Nice.
And more so, it's more so validation for us, you know?
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. You had a vision, and it may or may not be what it actually ends up coming to fruition when it gets in the customer's hands, right? Because
Exactly.
they got to build what they want.
Exactly.
Yes, or build. You got to build what they want,
Yeah,
basically.
your one button that you're so keen on. The button needs to be blue, and it needs to be blue, and it needs to have tapered corners because it's just aesthetic. And then the customer don't even care about the button. You know what I'm saying? They don't care. You know, they just more they care about what the button when they click it, what the app does. You know, so you know those are some of the things. And then if I had to go back and with the knowledge I know now, it would also help save a lot of money
Nice.
as well. That's the next thing too. It's like, hey, you know, you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to be able to stand that test of time, you know, and you got to be able to go through the punch and then be and not be okay, but accept. Well, come to the reality that everything has some implied cost to it. You know, it's not just an infinite runway. You know, we raised a little friends and family round, and we was like, yeah, we got what we need to get these things out. And then once more, that needs is more so wants, because it's not really in the marketplace to get that validation to say what it's needed or wanted. And then you end up having to bring it back and spend more money redeveloping, redesigning, reiterating, you know, to get the customer what the customer needs, you know? So yes, money is also a part of it as well. And the amount of money we spent in time as well, just figuring it out.
Yeah, so I've heard this a lot from startups, and that is, hey, look, it took me way more money than I thought it would to get product out or service out to the level. Is that would you agree with that?
100%. It's listen, it's just a map, you know, it's just a roadmap, it's just a projection. Reality is going to, like I said, validate that or invalidate that. But you know, I've heard something, a saying once more, you know, do what you can, you know, to be prepared, but you also have to plan for failures, right?
Huh.
And people kind of run over that. I'm not saying that it's my intent or goal to fail. You know what I'm saying? But
Yeah.
have some type of contingency plan just in case. You can be as confident as you want, but the idea here is to plan for failure, right? And not in the aspect that you're gonna fail, but have some kind of contingency that just in the slightest chance that it does go all wrong, you have a way out, or you have a method of dealing with it, or you just need to be an incredible human being with no type of emotions in order to cope with failure, because it does suck sometimes, So be prepared, plan, be prepared for success, do everything you need to do, but have that small contingency plan there. And I think that's got us out of a lot of sticky situations as well, as far as things not going as expected, and it can't just be a money thing. You know what I'm saying? It can't be just a money thing. It could be a team thing. Like, hey, you start off good. Some people get discouraged. Some people don't. It's so many uncertainties that's out there that you just have to be kind of prepared for. And this is where the planning comes in. You can't really necessarily pinpoint what the failure may be per se, but just know that whatever you're thinking, there's a great chance that it may not go as planned, and you need to be ready for that. Ready for that, be on your toes, and just be scrappy and resourceful.
I like it. So how about, you mentioned your team in there. How do you find people that are going to be resilient and able to change and deal with adversity?
Well, this is where, and I learned this from Luke Cooper. I got accepted into Latimer House inaugural accelerator program, and one of the very first lessons he taught us was culture. Culture, right? Corporate culture, companies culture, right? And it's kind of like, I had to ask the question a little bit for myself, because if you're a solo founder or there's only two of you, what culture are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? It's just me and you. Like, what culture is there? There's no culture. It's like, get it done, right? But it's more so, there's a reason why co-founders mesh, right? And that has to be in a way that, what do you stand for, right? Like, how does this company operate? And as founders, we have to have that as an integral part of our foundation, because the question is, do you punish a rock star, someone who kind of pushes the boundary, or do you reward a rock star, right? And all in the sense of, this is my core. Like, I want the guys to push the boundaries, to push the limits, right? And high risk takers, that is a cultural effect. Because if we're conservatives and we hire this guy, he's a ridiculously intelligent person, he's a superstar coder, but he pushes the boundaries a little bit, that might make the rest of the company feel uncomfortable. And then that question, do we punish that, or do we reward that? Like, what I'm saying? Yes, keep pushing, keep doing it, or no, you're against us. And then all of that kind of packaged as one entity, and liking your co-founders and liking your team. What values do you hold, and how do you hold it to each other? Is accountability one of the things that you all guys kind of having it open? Like, one thing that stuck with me is, like, when people say, what is your culture? It's like honesty, integrity, all these different things, which is all cool, but I think that should, be natural, right? To be, and to have integrity, that should be a natural thing. That shouldn't be like a culture. But hey, if you're someone who's open to provide constructive criticism, like, can we stand that? Are you okay with holding me accountable? You know what I'm saying? Like all that thing matters. So when it comes to team, culture matters, and it matters to the point that someone, like, we had one person who was really good at their job, but we couldn't really depend on that person, and that matters to the company, because when crunch time happens, what happens then? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. We can't rely on that person, companies fall apart. And if you're just hiring based on skill set, go past the skill set, which most business requires is further than your job per se. Like, how do you mesh with the people? Can we talk to you? Can we bounce ideas off to you? Are you a person who just watches the clock? Say, I did my job, 5 p.m., I'm out, bye. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do we even like you? You know what I'm saying? So that was one of the biggest things that really affected change into the entire operation development of the company, is understanding that culture that we're kind of nurturing right now. We don't have it 100% there yet, but we have some ideas of what we'd like to see from within our team, and potential team members that's coming on board.
Well, that's really brilliant. And I think what you said about, even if you're a solo entrepreneur or you have 2 people or then you have 3 or 4 or whatever, you still have your own set of values and culture and stuff you hold that are non-negotiables, right? And
exactly.
And that is whether you have 1 or 100 or 1,000 people, the leader or leadership team sets that. Whether they're doing it or not, they're doing it, correct?
100%. 100%, because that needs to happen without you.
Yeah, when you're not there.
When you're not there, like can be sustained, and yeah, that just and it has to be natural. It can't be fake, Warren Buffett says one time, if you put a cop behind a driver for an infinite amount of time, he will end up having to get a ticket, right? So, yeah. you need to have someone within the team that makes sure that it stays true, that will accept the ticket when that ticket do come, Yeah.
Well, then when the cop is following very closely behind you, it freaks you out, right? So
hey, and that'll tell you a lot about a person, for me, one thing that I like to do when I had my trucking company is like, I like to go on the road with the driver, right? People are like, why would you do that? I'm like, yeah, I want to see this driver, So for the first day or 2 days, right, they're perfect. You know what I'm saying? They're shifting the gears right. The first 2 days, they're being all the road signs and doing everything they're supposed to do. By day number 3, and mind you, I'm not saying anything to them. Nothing. I'm not saying, hey, you need to, no, nothing. Just, by day 3, we're cool. I'm buying them breakfast, lunch, dinner, and hanging out, joking, laughing. And by day 3, they're set in your ways. Day 4, day 5, they become themselves. And then I have to make the decision, like, is this something I'm okay with? The way he handles the truck, the way he drives, you know what I'm saying? And that's something I actually did for several of my first couple of drivers, because when I got started, I didn't know, we had no safety programs and driver training. I didn't have none of that stuff, But even with all that in place, there's still like this level of acceptance you need to have, and this is where that culture come into place. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, that's kind of part of it.
And we all agree that people will very quickly, especially if you apply some pressure, become who they really are in really, really short order.
100%. They will show you who they are. And then in those intense moments, you'll find out real quick. real quick, and I like to think of it as like, relationships, right? Like dating or whatever the case may be, is like, like the first couple of dates, you're in your best behavior, and then after you got the title, okay, that's my girlfriend, that's my boyfriend, you go back to your regular ways. But I'm on the couch watching football today, okay? Don't bother me, like, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, everyone will eventually fold at some point. The question is when, and how do you prepare for that? Because there are some people who are okay with bringing their flaws up front, right? Like, hey, I'm not good at this. This is what I do, and it's hard for most people to do that, and this is where having that culture you'll find out really quickly, if someone is who they are, or who they're pretending to be, or who they are on paper versus real life.
So that's great. I've had I've worked in a lot of companies where
Mhm.
people they say with their words, hey, we are a risk-taking companies and we reward those that take risk and we are okay with failing, but their actual culture is you better not fail or you're going to pay for it.
Yeah.
How do you foster that risk-taking in your business?
Well, okay, so I'm one of those, right? I'm a risk taker. Like I said, knowing nothing. My whole life been all about risk, right? Starting from nothing and just going out there and doing it, right? So as far as risk goes, and it's the matter of we have a mission, right? And it's not more so what they do per se, but it's more so how do they respond?
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Intent, right? Intention versus action. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you judge them based on the intention, not of the outcome of such,
Mhm.
So we have experiences when it comes to risk. It's like, okay, I want to do this, right? And this is what I'm going to do. This is what could be the outcome, potential outcome, good or bad or indifferent, and understanding the overall effects that we will have to everything else, kind of like in a chain line. Then that
Mhm.
is something we have to kind of like calculate, just have a discussion about it first, And then the
Sure.
question is when the results come in, okay, what are we going to do now? I failed. It's not working. Um, Forget about this. Nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Versus is with risk, it has some reward regardless of the outcome. And I like to think of it like the SpaceX Elon Musk situation.
Huh.
You blow it, you keep doing, you just keep doing. You do and you learn. Like he has sent so many rockets up and it failed and it failed and failed, but each failure was a success. Like, okay, I learned this, I learned that. Okay, I got this, I got that. And when you look at it from the 30,000 feet to those small nodes, you could take little yeses from it, like, okay, this worked, yes, that worked, yes, this worked, no. Just was the critical, it's all about what happens after. How to respond to it, like, what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
that is how we kind of deal with risk. And once we are back to corporate culture, do we have risk takers? Are we built of only risk takers? Because if we're all risk takers, then we don't have any substance. You don't have any
Yeah.
base. You don't have a baseline. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So we applaud risk, but to a certain extent. You know what I'm saying? As long as
Yeah.
we're able to bring something back from it and how we handle it. Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, I'll make this the last. This is blast. I'll make this the last question though. I don't want to keep you forever. Okay, so you're starting a company. You've done some crazy stuff in your life. You've started a couple companies, a trucking company with zero experience, and
Mhm,
now this logistics or logisex company that's
mhm,
by the
mhm.
way using leverage, using leveraging software and building software to so it basically you make money and solve problems when you're not even working. So that's cool.
Yeah.
Congratulations on that. That's brilliant. But how do you what
Thank
if you're
you.
going to do it all over again and you had one piece of advice for people that are starting their businesses, what would that be?
The one advice for people starting a business, what would it be? Just do it, you know? And it sounds so vague, just do it, right? Um, Dang, I hope Nike don't, copyright strike me for this. It's just a matter of just doing what you believe is right, doing what you believe in, and do it with the sense that like I said, everything we spoke about. Hey, it's a potential this could fail. Hey, who you're doing it with, you got to make sure that you guys mesh. Hey, there's some risk involved, and what are you going to do if it doesn't work, and what are you willing to give up for it? And you can only figure those things out once you are doing. It's like you can't learn business from a book. You can learn concepts, fundamental strategies, but they are nothing if you actually not conducting business. So in order for you to understand risk, it's by taking risk for real. Like you know about risk. In order for you to understand corporate culture, you have to go out there and discover it and build it. In order for you to understand, you know, whether your idea works or not, it's by actually executing it. It's actually putting it out there, bringing it in customers. Otherwise, it's just imagination. It's just dreams. So I encourage anyone with the slightest idea to do anything as an entrepreneur is by doing it. You can read all the books you want. You could have all of Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos, theory and day schedule and all. You could have all of that, but it means nothing until you actually put it to work. And that's by you doing. So that one advice is just do it.
That's brilliant. All right, I will leave it there. That is great advice. I love it. Yeah, you got to start, right? You got to start.
Just got to start. Get out the nest.
Well, DeShorn, this is a true pleasure. I'm very thankful to spend the time with you, and congrats on a successful, your second successful business, and probably more after this one, I'm guessing.
Well, yeah, I'm not stopping. I have so many ideas, right? So many ideas, and I got to get them out. So, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. Well, thank you so much for the time. I appreciate you.
No, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.